City News is brought to you by East Brewster Lawyers Rotorua, celebrating 100 years of legal excellence and innovation.
Good evening, Rotorua. Tonight on City News, MP Todd McClay says he's had early conversations with new Mayor Steve Chadwick and is confident of a good working relationship. The final results of the local government elections for the Bay of Plenty Regional Council have been declared, and Jenny Nahu is a Zonta Women's Achievement Award winner for her work in rugby league. Rotorua MP Todd McClay says he's certain of a good working relationship with new Mayor Steve Chadwick. Mr McClay says he has spoken with her since she won the Rotorua mayoralty and is setting time aside to sit down and talk through issues.
Rotorua is it's an interesting place. It's a very, very loyal place, and I think people thought that Kevin had worked very hard for 9 years, but we're having a look at a new direction.
Sure.
The really interesting thing is we made some changes to local government through Parliament a year or so ago, and they're coming about now. So the new Mayor Steve gets to choose the Deputy Mayor. Normally Council would. So we've given the Mayor greater ability and responsibility. And the councillors more ability and responsibility, probably taken a bit of that away from the bureaucracy and the civil servants, and I think that's a good thing, because actually in the same way I'm elected, I'm accountable to the people that have voted for me and who have elected me. I'm not sure we had the balance right for council. We were asking councillors to do jobs, but we hadn't given them the tools to do them. So I think that the changes are going to be good. It's going to allow Council, Steve, to look at debt, to have a really good look at what we're spending money on and rates and so on, absolutely on the services delivered. I've already had an early conversation with her. We're going to sit down, and there's a bit of stuff that we're both been talking about. We're about to do this together.
The final results of the local government elections for Bay of Plenty Regional Council have now been declared. Regional Council Chief Executive Mary Ann McLeod says there's a mix of new faces and experienced hands around the table. Representing Rotorua General is Lyle Thurston and Neil Oppert, and representing Okore Māori is first-time member Arapeta Tahana. For further details of the election results, go to boprc.govt.nz. Te Kura or Te Koutu are holding a fundraiser to help students with an educational trip to Mexico. The Kura is a total Māori immersion school that also teaches their students Spanish. Principal Uenuku Fairhall says the Kura makes annual trips to Mexico, which helps students with their Spanish. Student Aroha Biddle says they will stay with local families in Mexico.
Well, we've been learning how to speak Spanish, like the real Spanish, to the places we're going, and that we have to have the knowledge of how to speak Spanish and trying to understand it, because once we get to Mexico or Oaxaca, we'll be going as individuals in separate homes with families, and you have to speak Spanish there.
The Kura is holding a festival evening on Saturday the 2nd of November, beginning at 4 p.m. In sport tonight, dedication to the sport of rugby league in Rotorua has earned Jenny Nahu a Zonta Women's Achievement Award. The awards were held on Friday night with 4 women in our community honoured for their contributions in making Rotorua a great place to live. Jenny Nahu and her family have spent over 4 decades in the local rugby league scene, supporting and fundraising for the game. Organisers say her influence in league in the Bay of Plenty has been outstanding, giving 46 years service to the sport at club, schoolboy and district board level. To your weather update now, Rotorua. Tonight will be fine with a westerly breeze and an overnight low of 7. For tomorrow, Tuesday, fine with evening cloud, freshening westerlies, a high of 18 and a low of 11. And the outlook for Wednesday, early rain, then a few showers with westerlies easing, a high of 15 and a low of 4. And the marine forecast for Tuesday, westerly 10 knots rising to 15 knots around midday with waves less than half a metre. It will be fine with cloud increasing in the evening. Coming up after the break, we hear about the latest developments at the Rotorua Charitable Trust with Chairman Graham Hall. Alan Solomon catches up with Airport CEO Alastair Rhodes, and we find out about a new playground in Kawaha Point.
Well, if you're heading back to school next year or have some family who are thinking about studying, we've got a great story for you today because the Rotorua Energy Charitable Trust has decided to triple the amount of scholarships on offer, and to tell us more about that is the CEO of the Trust, Graham Hall. Thanks for joining us today, Graham. Now, I'm really excited about this because it gives the opportunity for people who may not be able to get more scholarships to apply and potentially get some good money for their studies.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm actually the chairman too, Alan, but I agree with you that it is exciting news, and the Trust are very pleased because we've put a lot of money into scholarships, and we're very pleased to be able to, after negotiations with Professor Margaret Noble, we're pleased to be able to increase the scholarship numbers and also widen the scope of them. So it'll make a big difference.
Yeah, so how many have you increased for next year?
We've increased them by 4, but we now have undergraduate, we have graduates, and we have a community career enrichment scholarship. So there's 3. So if you're an undergraduate or a postgrad, you can actually study at Wairiki for courses that are mainstay as maybe Waikato or maybe Victoria or some of the Canterbury. And that's made it far more flexible. Yeah. And we've increased the amount too. Previously, we used to just have a smaller amount. We've now increased that to over $25,000.
That's a lot of money.
So that's a lot of money.
Yeah. So I guess the bottom line would also encourage students to stay here in Rotorua.
That's the whole idea. That's why we work, because our trust is based in Rotorua and we can only serve the Rotorua district. So that was the whole idea, to get people who are studying at Wairiki home here locally and encourage them to stay here and study.
Have you got an idea of how much money in scholarships the Trust has given out over the years?
Yes, we have another scholarship, Alan. We have our tertiary study awards for secondary schools, and over the last 17 years we have had more than 800 of those scholarships. Wow. At $5.8 million that we've put back into scholarships. So it's a lot of money, and the Trust has a real commitment to education.
Yeah. So when you say 800 scholarships, is that 800 students, or do you think there's a couple of students that have had 1 or 2 scholarships?
800 students, but they are allowed to have a scholarship for up to 4 years. Oh. It's $2,000, and they can have it for up to 4 years to study at a university of their choice. Yeah. or a tertiary institute.
So on an average year, Graham, how many would you go through, or how many applications would you see?
Well, for the 50 we get for the secondary school, we normally get around about 100 applications.
So that's a bit of time sitting at a table going through them, isn't it?
A lot of time, yeah. A lot of time, and particularly some of them, we've got a criteria that we have to use, Alan, which is quite important, because you want to be able to put things clearly, not have a subjective judgment there. And so we have a criteria we go through, and we go through each and every one thoroughly, yeah. And 4 of us go through them. So we all put our mark on them and come back together, so that hopefully they won't slip through the net.
Is there any tips for someone who is wanting to apply for a scholarship? Is there anything that you're looking for that would help, and perhaps maybe a tip of what not to do in an application form? Well,
I think firstly, for the academic ones, you've really got to be out there, you've got to work hard, and you've got to show that you've got a good history of working hard. For the others, a community service. For the ones that are part community, part academic, I never cease to be amazed, to be honest, how much time these people have to do so many things, that how much less time they've got for doing their academic work. Yeah. They're just so clever. But no, not really. I think it's just really persevere and have a really good, clear commitment of where you want to be and where you want to go. That, to me, is what we're looking for. We don't insist you come back to Rotorua, because people go all over the world. A lot of them do come back. But no, it's just hard work, good work ethic, both classroom and community.
Well, Graham, it's been a pleasure talking with you, and thank you for what you guys do here at the Trust, because I know there's a lot of students out there that do rely on scholarships to get through their studies, so appreciate your time.
No, you're very welcome, Alan, and it's great that the Rotorua Trust are able to help our community, young people.
Good stuff, thank you.
Cheers.
We're down here at the airport today, and there's been a number of changes down here, and the best person to talk to about this is with me today, the CEO, Alistair Rhodes. Thanks for joining us today, Alistair. Now, there's a lot of stuff happening down at the airport, but I think the really big thing that your clients or the people that are flying out of Rotorua will enjoy is the new Wi-Fi system.
Yeah, I think we've had that up and running for the last 2 weeks now and actually getting some fantastic customer experience. So, the reason we did that, we've been talking to our customers over the last sort of 5 months since I've been in the role, and that was one of the common issues that they were all kind of raising. It'd be great to actually have a Wi-Fi service available from here. So our current IT provider's done a fantastic kind of job getting that up and running, and now, it's very easy to come to the airport and just log on to the free Wi-Fi, and it's, experienced no issues at all. So it's been going really well.
Yeah, I think that the user pay system is getting a bit old now because people go to the airport and wanting to catch up with emails and make some business calls, but having free Wi-Fi is definitely the advantage for you to have it here.
Yeah, and it kind of fits into what the council's doing as well. The council's introduced free Wi-Fi around the city at various kind of points, so it fits in really nicely with that. And I kind of agree with you. I think the days of hotels, etc., charging for Wi-Fi is just going to actually disappear. So you might as well kind of embrace that and kind of go with it, and encourage people to come in a bit early if they can get their cup of coffee from Robert Harris, or go and get a lotto ticket, etc., and get free Wi-Fi at the same time. Here. Yes, you can have lotto here. So
awesome.
I think all the big prizes have been won though, so unfortunately, but definitely we have lotto here. We've got a bookstore, we've got a fantastic cafe, etc. at the same time.
Yeah. And now the good news is that the departure tax is coming down, so that's got to be good for your clients.
Yes, so our international departure tax, we've decided to reduce it from $25 to $15, and that's going to take effect in about a couple of weeks' time. So, we can't actually tell Air New Zealand what they should actually do in terms of pricing for the airfares, but one thing we can influence and change is that kind of departure tax. So for us, it's all about making us more competitive to fly out of Rotorua compared to kind of flying out of Auckland, where they charge a $25 departure tax out of Auckland.
Now, with the reduction of that cash flow coming in, does that mean there's going to be less developments out here, or is that pretty much finished?
No, we've got a fantastic facility out here. We've done everything we need to do in terms of runway expansions and terminal expansions for the next, for the foreseeable future. So definitely it's not going to impact on our ability to, develop or, create, we don't need to actually do any significant kind of developments out here. It's going to have a small impact on our results, but we believe kind of long term the ability to kind of drive more passengers on that service, it's going to be a lot more attractive for, say, a family of 4 to fly to Sydney, at $15 each rather than $25 each. That long term, we're going to make that money back.
It's good that you brought up Sydney, because obviously that's always a bit of a talking point out here at the airport and with the Rotorua community. There's going to be a reduction in that as well next year. So just talk us through that, Alistair.
Yeah, so we've had Rotorua Sydney sort of twice a week since 2009, since December 2009, and performs reasonably okay over that kind of period from sort of September all the way through to the end of April. But over that kind of the winter period, traditionally it's actually, the performance has been pretty poor. So a lot of flights traditionally have been kind of cancelled over that period anyway. So instead of just sort of sitting there and waiting for that to happen, we've actually gone out and proactively negotiated a new contract with Air New Zealand. We've said it's no point flying over those 3 or 4 months over the middle of winter, because there's just not the demand from the people from the Bay of Plenty to go to Sydney, or from Australians to come to the Bay of Plenty over that kind of winter period. So rather than continually trying to fly over the period, let's proactively kind of cancel over that kind of 4-month period, and that's going to significantly reduce the contributions that the council effectively makes to help sustain that service.
Maybe just looking a little bit more into the future, Alistair, would there ever be the opportunity to get flights from, say, Brisbane and Melbourne as well as Sydney?
Yeah, so for me, there's a couple of things. I think that fundamentally a Brisbane service would be sustainable from this kind of region. If you look over, say, July and August, around 50-60% of the people from this region that go anywhere in Australia are going to the Brisbane Gold Coast. So the demand's clearly there. We did have some discussions with Air New Zealand about the potential of getting that service up and running over winter. Unfortunately, it didn't quite fit into the network at that time, but I still think that in the future, that Brisbane service over winter would perform fantastically from the region. So that's something we're really looking at. Melbourne, not at this stage. I don't see that happening in the next sort of 5 years. I think, if we could get Brisbane up and running over winter, I do think Brisbane over summer would also work quite well, because there's a lot of family and friends that live in kind of Brisbane that want to come back to the Bay of Plenty. Plus, it's also quite an attractive destination to leave. It's actually not that fun in Brisbane in the middle of summer when it's 45 degrees and 100% humidity and there's flies everywhere. So, I do think that there's some potential around that. And for me, as based on my experience, I think that sector would perform probably a lot better year-round than the Sydney sector we have at the moment.
Now, recently, Destination Rotorua has just put out the new campaign, Famous Rotorua. Obviously, it's got to be good for the city. Long term, do you think it's going to impact tourism here? Do you think we're going to get the numbers through the airport?
Yeah, so that campaign is really focused on the Auckland market, and that's something I really support. For us in Rotorua, Auckland's not a threat, Auckland's our opportunity. It's by far cheaper to get, say, a family of 3 or 4 to, drive down from Auckland to Rotorua than it is to, fly down to Queenstown or something like that. So people sort of say, why as an airport are you supporting that? And for me, I acknowledge that, 99% of those people that, travel down from Auckland will drive, but 1% will fly. And it's also, if we can get our businesses growing in this kind of region, so if all the tourism business start humming, people will set up new businesses down here. Those are the people that generally fly on, say, the Auckland Rotorua sector, those kind of business people. And, so that for me is, I think, long term, I think it's exactly what we need to be doing. And I think that is the market for Rotorua, is that Auckland market. The whole Rotorua Bar Plenty needs to be that kind of producer and playground from Auckland. Auckland's going to get more and more, condensed, more and more population, and we need to be that choice that, let's come down here for, 2.5, 3 hours drive and just kind of escape for that weekend.
Yeah, I think that's right, Alistair. Auckland is a huge opportunity for Rotorua. And just before we go, recently you just had the pronunciation of Māori words, especially Rotorua, pronounced correctly over the loudspeakers. So have you had any feedback from people flying out or from any locals that have been through that have noticed?
Yeah, we've had a lot of feedback from locals actually saying, it's really great that actually the airport's embracing the kind of the culture and getting the pronunciation kind of correct. So I think it's really important for us. And, just actually 5 minutes before this interview, I actually got an email from Oscar Nathan, GM of Destination Rotorua, and he just said, he flew out of this airport a couple of weeks ago and it was fantastic. There was free Wi-Fi, Rotorua was pronounced correctly, and he just said, it's a fantastic kind of experience. So it's little things like that, we've done a bit of landscaping, we're getting the pronunciation correctly, doing free Wi-Fi. It doesn't actually add any additional kind of costs at all, and it's just little small incremental kind of improvements that we're looking at making over the coming years.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Righty, cool. And I still appreciate your time.
No worries. Thank you.
Well, if you live in Kaua Point, we've got a good story for you today because the council have decided to put a playground right in the neighbourhood. And with me from the council is Robbie Atkinson. Thanks for joining us today, Robbie. Now, obviously, Kaua Point, it's quite a nice area of town, but in Grandview Road, there's that empty section on the corner. So how did it come about that the council has decided to put a playground there?
2012, council received a petition by a group of local residents. So we received the petition and we went through the due process, which involves going back to the public. So we canvassed, I think it was about 300 properties in the area to get their views on it. And from there we went to council because it meant a change to the reserve management plan for that Grandview Road Reserve. And that was all passed by council. And so we've gone ahead and purchased some equipment and drawn up a plan, and still hopefully will be installed before Christmas.
Now that corner on Grandview Road, there would be maybe half a dozen, up to 10 houses that would be directly in view of the playground. Why would you go and contact 300 properties?
Because it's basically, we say that a playground will serve a 500 metre radius from the centre of the playground. So within that 500 metres around Grandview Road, there was about 300 odd housing properties that we had to consult with.
Was there anybody that were opposed to the playground?
22% of the respondents were opposed to the playground. So some of them were just concerned as well about parking and noise and age of the kids. So hopefully the selection of the play equipment and the design of the reserve will hopefully alleviate some of those concerns for us.
Now obviously in Kaua Point it's probably a little bit older people that live up there, maybe retired people. Is there a lot of families up there that would actually utilise the playground?
We believe so. Of course the census data was from 2006, but they place quite a large percentage of children under sort of the age of 10 in that area at that time. So we're hoping that sort of the demographics will remain constant. So families come, families go, but hopefully the demographics for the children will remain constant.
Cool. So now that the petition's been done and the process has gone through, when is the construction going to start?
We're hoping to have it all finished by Christmas. So the construction's due to start the week after next. So this week we've sent out letters and consulting with the immediate neighbours, so the 8 houses that surround the reserve all got letters sent out with the plan, asking for their input onto the actual design of the reserve itself.
That's quite interesting that the council actually get the opinions of people right around the area. That's really interesting. The one thing that we talked about off camera is that there's a couple of neighbours that are directly in view of it. How much input do they have in what happens?
They have quite a bit of input if they wish to. So like I said, we sent out the plan to the immediate neighbours, so they've all had the plan. They've all had 2 opportunities to give us their views, whether against or for. So far we've had 1 respondent in writing about the plan who wishes to have a few bits of play equipment sort of shifted slightly to probably clear sight lines or something of concern for him. And the other one was concerned that we're now going to fence the reserve and he wasn't able to get access to the back of his property. So we've answered those sorts of questions.
Well, you're doing a great job here, Robbie, because obviously consulting with the neighbourhood is very important, so we appreciate that, and thanks for your time.
That's okay.
Well, the woman in charge of designing the park is with me now, Rebecca Cray. Thanks for joining us, Rebecca. Now, you've got an awesome job because you get to design and come up with this park for kids, and you've got a really interesting twist to the story too, haven't you?
Yeah, so we've managed to design a playground that's got a range of new equipment to Rotorua, and we've also got some equipment which provides for kids with disabilities.
Wow, that's fantastic. So I guess the big question is where do you get all this equipment from? Because I don't think you could make equipment for playgrounds designed for kids with disabilities here in Rotorua, so it must have been sourced from outside our city. Yes,
that's correct. So we've got 2 playground suppliers in this instance, and we use Playco and the Playground People, which are both based in New Zealand. So the Buddy Swing, which is provides for children with disabilities, is from Playco.
And this is the first time this has actually been implemented here in the city too, eh?
Yes, that's right. So we've got a lot of new equipment. We don't want all our playgrounds to look exactly the same. We want to provide a range of play opportunities for the children.
Cool. Now, what sort of things are you going to have down there apart from the swing for disabled kids? What else is there?
So we've got a spinning top, and we've also got a rocket-shaped climbing frame. So that goes about 3 metres high, so that provides a lot of challenges for the children. There's also a seesaw and as well as the buddy swing, yeah.
But how long has it taken for your team to go through the process of actually designing the playground itself?
So the design phase has probably taken about 6 weeks in terms of reiterations and going on site and checking that things are actually as we imagine they are. So that's mainly in terms of the trees and which of the species are declining. And we've also had to constantly reiterate, sometimes it interferes with the engineering structures underground, so all the pipelines. So we've had to do a lot of shifting around to accommodate that.
So there's a lot more involved than actually just looking at the playground and seeing the finished product.
Yeah, so we've had to also, part of our feedback that came back was that the centre area of the playground they wanted to keep clear so that the children could still play soccer or whatever, so that's why it's also off to the side.
Cool. Well, we look forward to the finished product and head along down there at Christmas time, and hopefully we'll be all finished by then. Thanks for your time, Rebecca.
Great, thank you.
That was RDC landscape architect Rebecca Cray speaking with Alan Solomon. You can catch the full City News program online at tvrotorua.co.nz. And don't forget, if you have any news or an event that we can support, you can give the station a call on 07 34 88 984 or email news@tvrotorua.co.nz. Thanks for watching tonight. We hope you have a great night. Pomaria.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.
City News was brought to you by East Brewster Lawyers Rotorua, celebrating 100 years of legal excellence and innovation.